Hi, I'm John Peter, Curator and Plant Records Manager at the Royal Botanical Garden.
My name is Chris Tarrant and I am the Manager of Plant Propagation and Production here at RBG.
Good morning, my name's Alex and I'm the Curator of Collections at Royal Botanical Gardens.
Hello, my name is Jim Mack. I'm Head of Horticulture at the Royal Botanical Garden. We're here to answer your gardening questions.
This question comes to us from Helen in Milton, Ontario. She asks, when can I prune my smoke tree and burning bush? Basically, both of those are multi-stem shrubs, which can all be pruned at relatively the same time. And the best time of year to do that is from late winter until early spring, before the buds on the plants start to swell and definitely before the leaves emerge each spring. Other shrubs like forsythias and things that bloom early in the spring, you'd want to hold off pruning those until after they flower. But for your smoke tree and your burning bush, which flower later in the season, optimal time would be to prune them early spring, late winter.
This is a question from Lisa in Georgetown, Ontario. My son is moving into a brand new house in a brand new subdivision. What is the best tree or shrub to plant around the yard's perimeter for privacy? I was thinking of a boxwood hedge or cedar trees. Well, Lisa, the first thing you have to ask yourself is what kind of a screen do you want? In other words, would it be a year-round screen or privacy issue, or just a part year when you're mostly using the yard? The reason to ask this is that should it be an evergreen or a deciduous plant which drops its leaves in the fall? I would discourage against boxwood, even though in these parts that is generally an evergreen plant, because there's so much variability and it's so likely that it might be a bit tender and not be winter hardy that I would discourage you away from that. As far as an evergreen plant, you mentioned cedar. Cedar is used typically interchangeably with the word arborvitae, which is in Canada is the Arborvitae occidentalis is as the primary arborvitae in use as either a hedging or a screen material. And one of the better cultivars is the emerald cedar, or Thuja occidentalis smaragd, which is the actual cultivar developed by the Danish. It's a Danish word for emerald. And this plant grows to approximately 15 foot tall by a 4 foot width and can be used as a pretty nice dense screen that you would cut or trim to shape a little bit, but it doesn't need much trimming at all, really, just prior to the growth starting in the spring. If you wanted to go with a deciduous type shrub, I would suggest a Spirea prunifolia, which is known as the bridal wreath spirea. Bridal wreath spirea attains a 4 to an 8 foot tall height. It can be trimmed into a hedge or just left to its natural form. It gets tiny, profuse white flowers just covered abundantly in them. They're also attractive to butterflies in April. And it has a fine textured foliage that gets a reliable orange-red in the fall. So this can be used to quite nicely as a screen. There are, of course, many other types of shrubs that could be used, but those are two of the better ones. Now, as far as using some trees that would be good for perhaps a smaller property or more cylindrical in nature, a couple that I could suggest that are featured actually in our Royal Botanical Garden rose garden would be the Apollo sugar maple, which is an upright fastigiate sugar maple that gets 30 foot tall by 10 foot wide and maintains an orange and gold fall color in the fall, typical of your sugar maples. Another nice choice is the slender silhouette sweet gum. That tree tops out at about 50 foot by 10 foot wide, and it gets dark green leaves which change to burgundy yellow and orange red in the fall. And since it's nearly sterile, it produces very few of the spiny fruits which are characteristic of this particular tree. So it's nice to intermix the trees to provide some contrast with the shrubs, and certainly good luck with your screening project.
We have a question here that asks, I want to direct sow pansy seeds into my garden. I have grown pansies for years with nursery transplants. For our zone, is it still too cold to sow pansies seeds? Well, pansy seeds are normally sown November, December, January for spring flowering. They're a cold crop and they don't do well in the summer at all, and they do not overwinter unless you've got a very sheltered area. So their germination temperature is 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, so you'll have to wait until late May, early June to sow your seeds, and by that time you're going to probably lose them in the garden during the summer months because it's too hot and it'll burn them out unless you can keep it cool. There is the chance that they would survive through the summer and then flower for you in the fall, but that's not typically done. So the recommendation is to either start your seeds indoors late November, early December, or into January, or buy your transplants again from the garden centres to plant out for spring flowering.
And today I'm going to talk a little bit about apartment farming. And the reason for that is because I got a fantastic and interesting question from Helen in Dundas. And this is what she asked. We live in a sunny apartment with no balcony and want to grow some herbs and vegetables because we are finding this a very challenging time. What do you suggest? So, as you can imagine, there are many things that you can grow indoors in your apartment, but the first thing that springs to my mind are herbs. Because herbs are very versatile, you can use them with anything. They're really tasty and they'll make any meal so much better. So, typical herbs that you might want to grow in your apartment include really obvious ones like basil, rosemary, mint, cilantro, and parsley, things like that. I mean, they're really easy to grow. All you need are some small pots and a warm windowsill, and those guys will produce for you. But a quick tip about that is don't buy your herbs pre-grown at the supermarket. They're all grown hydroponically, so when you get them home, they won't adapt well to your situation. So if you can grow them from seed, that would be great. Another great idea are microgreens. These are things that people should be eating a lot more of because they're so healthy for you. But again, they're like really versatile. You can put them with practically anything and they make the dish taste better. Plus they're really good for your health, which is important at this time. So another great idea is to harvest bulbs from garlic. So if you get the really big bulbs and you plant them in a small pot of soil, within about 2 weeks, you'll have garlic greens growing like nobody's business. And who doesn't want that to add to a really tasty meal? So that's another great tip with garlic. Salad greens, another great one. So talking about lettuce and spinach, again, those will grow on a sunny windowsill in a shallow container, and you can just keep harvesting them as you need. Spinach is great for smoothies as well as meals, so that's another versatile thing that you could be growing. Another one is kale. So kale is one of my favorites, and again, I love smoothies with kale, and smoothies with kale and pineapple are just like awesome. So, and again, like there are a lot of dwarf varieties that you can buy now which are perfect for apartment life. So again, sunny windowsill, and you can't really go wrong. Just put them in a 6-inch pot again and you'll have lots of kale. Who doesn't want kale chips? Perfect. Green onions are another good one. So if you buy green onions from a supermarket or a grocery store, if you cut the bottom 1 inch of the white root off that has the roots on and you replant that, again within about 2 weeks, those green onions will be sprouting and providing you with greens. They won't produce the full onion, but you'll certainly get the tasty greens, so that's a great tip. One of my favorites actually is I really like beets, and I love having beet smoothies. And what I tend to do is, instead of throwing the green leaves away, I cut the top of the beet off, leaving about that much of the beet intact, put it in a container of water, and within about 2 weeks you've got beet leaves growing for you. And apparently the leaves are more nutritious than the actual root. And who doesn't want something for free, right? So that's an awesome tip for getting free beets. Now, there's a couple of outliers here. This might be a little difficult for you to do right now, but as a future tip, if you're really wanting to get into the apartment farming, is think about the citrus family. So how about purchasing a dwarf mandarin tree or a dwarf lemon tree to boost that vitamin C content in your life? I mean, the flowers smell amazing when they're flowering, and the fruit straight off the tree are a taste sensation. So really good. So maybe in future years you could consider that. And then the last thing I really wanted to say is, I guess we've talked a lot about food, but what would happen, for example, if you wanted a delicious beverage of choice for the weekend? So one of the things that I've done in the past, which I really enjoyed as a little project, was growing various different kinds of mint, which, as you probably know, are perfect for mojitos. So if you're wanting to relax and have a nice, easy weekend, that's a great tip for how some of these ingredients make really great garnishes for cocktails. So, Helen, I hope I've answered your question. And with this new knowledge that we've shared together, I hope once we get through this situation, you and your family, we may have a cocktail at some time in the future. So thanks for your question, stay healthy, and take care.